Welcome to Pulse Check, where we have quick conversations about how to help people in Alabama live healthier lives. Today's conversation is really important because it impacts far more people than we often realize, and that's access to food. I'm joined by Varina Mead, Director of Marketing and Communications for the Heart of Alabama Food Bank. Varina has spent her career working across Alabama in organizations focused on strengthening families, supporting children, and improving community health. Her background spans everything from donor engagement and community outreach to marketing and communications for organizations like Easter Seals of Central Alabama and the Brentwood Children's Home. Through it all, her work has centered on one thing: helping people access the support they need to live healthier, more stable lives. Today, we're talking about food insecurity, what it really looks like, how it impacts both physical and mental health, and what we can do about it. Varina, I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so happy to get the chance to talk about this very important topic.
I know it is close to your heart. So when we say food insecurity, what does it look like for families in Alabama?
I mean, that can really look like a wide variety of things. It can look like your child's friend. It can look like the guy sitting to the left of you on a Sunday at church. It can look like your coworker who might just be skipping lunch that day because they forgot, quote unquote, forgot to pack it. It can look like you. It can look like me. So it really doesn't have a distinctive kind of face. It's around us all the time. And it's just raising awareness within the community to be able to identify when somebody might just be needing a little bit of extra support, and then how we can help direct them to that with dignity and care.
Wow. So these are people who literally can be hiding in plain sight.
Very much so. So in the state of Alabama alone, 1 in 7 adults is considered food insecure. And when I talk about food insecurity throughout this podcast, I'm referring to what Feeding America, our parent organization, how they define food insecurity, which is lack of regular access to proper nutrition to live a healthy and active lifestyle. So that's the definition as I'm referring to it for food insecurity. So 1 in 7 adults in the state of Alabama is considered food insecure, and 1 in 5 children. That is a staggering amount. We're talking about close to 750,000 households in the state of Alabama that are considered food insecure and needing a little bit of assistance. It's a lot of people, and like I said, it looks just like you, it looks just like me, regardless of what car they might be driving or any of the stigmas, those preconceived notions and stigmas that people may have about those with food insecurity or that might be needing assistance. Oftentimes they're wrong about it. Once you get into, for example, at the Heart of Alabama Food Bank, I welcome everyone. I know you guys have come and you volunteered with us, and that's wonderful. We love and look forward to having you all, and a lot of other individuals and corporate groups as well. We invite people to come and volunteer at a food pantry, volunteer at a food bank, and look families in the eye, hear some of their stories. And what you'll quickly learn is that it's not what you might have thought it was, that these are people who are oftentimes working, sometimes working multiple jobs, who are just having a difficult time making ends meet. Sometimes it's medical expenses that have gone beyond their control. And so they are having to forego food in order to meet medical needs. So you hear the stories of parents skipping meals in order to feed their children. You see the older gentleman who had to choose his medicine over his meals. And these are the people that we're here to serve. This is the face of food insecurity.
Wow. Thank you for that definition, and thank you for explaining it further and the stories behind it. How does not having consistent food access impact somebody's physical health over time?
It's a slow buildup. So it might start by a neighbor or a neighborhood who does not have good access to food. So perhaps they don't have a food pantry located in their area. They don't have chain grocery stores in their area. So if you have smaller grocery stores, and some communities even have just like convenience stores within their area, those aren't going to offer the variety of nutritious foods that families need. And by families, I mean, I'm referring to, it can be an individual, it could be a family unit, a child, or a senior. I'm just using the word family kind of interchangeably here. So if they don't have access to that proper nutrition over time, making those smaller, nutritious choices are then going to start to deplete mental capacity, physical capacity. They're going to be at higher risk then for type 2 diabetes, obesity, high blood pressure, and heart disease. So these are all things that can really be tackled through proper nutrition and access to it.
I think I've heard of those being referred to as food deserts, right?
Yes, correct.
So we talked about the physical health. What would food insecurity do to a person's mental health or their stress level, their anxiety, and even decision making?
Well, sure. If you wake up every morning and you're trying to decide what you're going to do to feed your family that day, how am I going to make? I've got children and I don't have any money in my budget for it. The pantry is running very low. The refrigerator is basically empty. I know those kids are going to want breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks because they're growing and busy doing their things. Waking up with that stress right from the beginning of the day is going to cause, as you can imagine, a great deal of anxiety as they move through their day, taking up that mental capacity that then is going to subtract from their ability to work properly, their ability to focus on other things that might be needed. And then that chronic stress over time, in addition to the lack of proper nutrition, will then lead to those other health issues that we then discussed. So it's a very holistic issue. So the cycle of poor health, if somebody is having a difficult time affording food, then they're going to start to do a give and take, right? They're going to start to have find a little bit of flexibility. And where can we oftentimes find flexibility? It's going to be in our food budget. Again, because we've got to make rent, pay our mortgage, we've got
Fixed
to have
costs.
lights, right? We've got to have lights, we've got to have gas in our car to be able to get to work. I'm going to need that medicine because if I don't have that medicine, I'm going to have all these other issues that are then going to happen. So I'll just, I'll decrease my grocery budget, my food budget this week. Or
Right.
maybe I just won't eat today so that I can share that food, with my children. So that over time, that's going to increase their physical strength. So they're going to have all these other health conditions that are going to then start to pop up. Well, then the time and money that it's going to take to manage those new chronic health conditions are only going to deplete their funds even further.
Wow.
So then they're going to have less money then to be able to purchase food and medicine. And so the cycle is just going to continue and continue. So oftentimes there's the stigma of going to a food pantry or asking for help. And that's one thing that we would really want to, from Heart of Alabama Food Bank, Feeding Alabama, and Feeding America Network. Our food bank network exists to be able to make it easy to access. We don't want that to be a barrier for them. You mentioned food deserts earlier. Food deserts are defined as those places that don't have grocery stores, pantries, but can also have issues like transportation. There are communities that you don't have public transportation available to them. So if you don't have a car and you don't have somebody who can help you get to the nearest grocery store, which let's say is 45 minutes away, then you've got a real problem on your hands then. And you're going to be able to you're going to be looking for that caloric intake wherever you can find it. And then they're going to oftentimes reach for those less expensive foods, which are those oftentimes least nutritious. So we want to be able to step in and try to fill that gap so that then their money, their resources can shift to focus on other things like getting that medication, making sure their child does have what they need, putting gas in the car so that they can get to work. Like I said before, a lot of the families that we work with, 70%, to be specific, are working families. So again, these are people who are trying their hardest to make ends meet. But as the cost of everything, as you've seen it, as I feel it, as things continue to rise, these are the families that are feeling the pressure more than most.
You mentioned 1 in 5 children are affected by food insecurity. I remember when my kids, they're adults now, but when they were little, my oldest daughter's fourth grade teacher I'd walk her into class and she'd usually have a big pot of grits going with slices of cheese. And I remember asking her one time, like, "Oh, this is fun, and she's like, I can't teach them if they're hungry. I've got to take care of first needs first. And so every
That's right.
day we had a pot of grits and slap on a piece of cheese. And those kids knew if I don't get anything else, I'm getting something in Miss Bowman's class. She was wonderful. And so you mentioned children. Are they the most affected group, or is there a different group that would be considered the most affected group? Are there any groups that might surprise people? You mentioned working. That definitely surprised me that 70% of the people who utilize your services are working.
They are, and we see a lot of children, as you can imagine. And so I love that your daughter's teacher had done that in school. I think that that's wonderful. I hate that that's a necessary thing, but so many children rely on school meals in order to be able to eat, and the backpack programs that food banks support, the backpack programs to help carry them through the weekends and through school holidays and things like that. When they're not able to focus, when you're hungry, you just can't focus on things. You just can't. And if you're consistently hungry, your brain is going to then shift all of that energy to other parts of your body to keep it going. So your cognitive abilities will decline over time, meaning a child will not be able to focus on what they're learning in school. They're going to start having behavioral issues. They're going to be tired all the time. They're going to be cold all the time. So they're going to be complaining and they're going to be unhappy with things. And there's this whole cluster of issues, secondary issues that then come in when somebody is so hungry. Children are the most affected by far. However, we do see working adults that are affected and a lot of seniors also. I can't tell you the number of seniors that we see that come in who rely on the box of food that we give them for 1 month. And they will try to take it's a 25-pound box of food that we provide, and they will try to stretch that the entire month. That's very, very difficult to do. But when they are, again, choosing between that life-saving medication and their food, they're going to try to find food another way to access that medication.
Absolutely. Are there some signs that to look for if somebody is experiencing food insecurity, even if they're not talking about it?
Yes, there's all kinds of ways. And it might just be that suddenly they start skipping events that perhaps they once had gone to, showing that maybe they might be having some financial difficulties. They will stop perhaps bringing their lunch or going to lunch on their lunch break if they have one. They will stop, going out with everybody to up to Chappie's up the road or whatever and get some lunch, or they'll stop bringing in lunch. And they'll have an excuse for things, for this or that. Again, they might also just seem to be filled with a little bit more anxiety because of that mental load that then comes with that. And something that we can do as a community when you start to suspect that somebody you know or are close to is experiencing food insecurity is to share a resource with them. One of the best resources that we like to share is 211. That is a statewide resource that it's actually nationwide. But here in Alabama, any corner of the state can call 211, and it is a free call, just like 911, where then they can give their zip code and let them know what help they're needing. If they're needing food, assistance for food, clothing, shelter, a variety of different things 211 can help with. But all of the pantries that we work with, Heart of Alabama Food Bank works with about 200 food pantries across our 35 county area. Give them your zip code when you call 211, and then they will connect you with a food pantry in your area that then you can access food to. So when I speak with human resources people, for example, I like to say, in any of your internal meetings or newsletters that you have, put some information on 211 in there. That's a way that you can share that information without going directly to the person and saying, hey, I noticed you didn't have lunch today. Are you food insecure? That's not a good way to be able to handle that. But maybe if you do it a little bit more blanketed and say, hey, look, I found this great resource here to access food pantries. Look at this information. This is wonderful. In case you know of anybody, here's some information. And then not only will they might sniff around and kind of check into it some, but then they'll share it with others because chances are they might have other household members or family members connected to them that are also food insecure. So getting that resource out and spreading the word is very important. And knowledge is power. So if people know how to access it, again, with dignity, then we want them to do that.
I love that. You mentioned that not having good nutrition all along the way, the overall impact downstream is diseases, conditions like diabetes, heart disease, obesity. What are some other ways that the food banks step in and provide not just food, but support overall health?
Well, one of the things and I can speak for any food bank and any food pantry easily and say this, is that we care. Nobody that is within our food banking network system is doing this for any other reason other than we want to see meaningful change happen in our communities. So every volunteer that's coming to pack, every volunteer that's distributing food, and every pantry and food bank that's within the state of Alabama, we care. And so we're going to listen to hear not only with the food access, of course, we're going to be able to provide you with food that we can and access to additional information if we can. But again, we're going to listen and share whatever resources we can gain. We expect to hear oftentimes there's co-occurring situations with families. It's not only food insecurity. It is maybe budget management. It is perhaps job seeking. It's perhaps some medical assistance that they might be needing, or transportation, childcare issues. There's a variety of barriers that might get in the way between somebody's ability to be able to access nutrition in their everyday life. So when we take the time to stop and really listen to these families and carry on conversations, look them in the eye and carry on these meaningful conversations, we can make meaningful change by sharing information because, again, knowledge is power. And if you provide a family the resources available that they can access themselves, the hope is that they will then access it and be able to help themselves and shift course if needed.
I love that. So you mentioned stigma, there being a stigma attached. What are some common misconceptions about people who rely on food assistance?
I think a common misconception is that this is just the person sitting at home on quote unquote welfare, eating bonbons on their couch, watching TV shows all day. This is something that we hear a lot, and nothing could really be further from the truth. Yes, there are some individuals that do take advantage of that, we'll say, but it's a small percentage overall. A large, overwhelming majority are people who are actively trying to improve the quality and outcomes of their lives. So I'll give myself as an example here. In my adult life, I have been in need of food assistance. So I have been not only on this side of the Heart of Alabama Food Bank, I have been on the other side of the Heart of Alabama Food Bank as well, when I found myself in a very tough position, leaving and needed food assistance. And at that time, I can remember pulling up to a food pantry, and I was well dressed, and I was in a pretty nice car, and I could feel the weight of judgment on me as I was going up to ask for this assistance that I desperately needed. I received the food, thank goodness, and was able to take care of my 2 young children. But the next day, my car was repossessed. And I had to sell a lot of these clothes that I was wearing in order to raise money, to be able to purchase more food, to be able to take care of my rent in my new place, and all of these other things. Had it not been for the assistance of the food pantries and the Heart of Alabama Food Bank, I cannot begin to imagine how I would have done it. But having that group, that support to fill in that gap for me allowed me to doggedly pursue jumping back into my career, which is a nonprofit service. I'm jumping back into my career and put all my energy and efforts into getting back into the workplace to reestablish myself and become a little bit more stable. Now, oftentimes I might not be the one that people think of when they think of somebody accessing food assistance. But again, it looks just like anybody else. With 1 in 7 adults in Alabama needing food assistance, it really is. It's in your office. It is in your child's classroom. It is at your church. It's the person checking you out at the grocery store. It's the senior that is standing in line at CVS. It really could be anybody at any point in time. We could all be one catastrophic, hopefully it never happens, but one catastrophic medical event away from being food insecure and needing a little bit of support. So that's why the food banking network exists.
I've seen, not even necessarily catastrophic, even just something, a small glitch can throw you off because so many of us are living paycheck to paycheck. So many of us who, like you said, blend in and look like, whatever normal is, but we could all be in that situation. So, well, you mentioned having companies come and they pack the boxes, and we've done that, as you said before, but what are some other ways that the community can get involved and support food access in a meaningful way? And I'd also like you to talk about the impact of cash, how you can spend cash versus if I just go buy some canned goods and bring them by.
Which we love. Make no mistake about it. Let me be very clear. We love those cans. If you go to the store and you get a can of green beans, let's say it's $1.17. It fluctuates all the time. I feel like it's always going up. But if you go and you buy a can of green beans for over $1 at a food bank, so for example, at the Heart of Alabama Food Bank, we can get 5 full meals out of what you paid for that one can. So for us, $1 is 5 meals, and we're able to do that because of our purchasing power. We have partnerships with large box stores like Publix and Walmart and other stores as well. We swap food with other food banks in the area. We purchase food. So because of the way that we have everything structured, we're able to really take that dollar and stretch it quite far. And because of that, we're able to serve more. So the dollar truly goes furthest when it comes to a food bank or a food pantry. That's the best way to help. And also hand coming in, like you said, coming in and packing boxes. It's more work than what a staff can do. And the money that the food bank receives, we want it as much as possible to go to food and services because we are trying to identify those pockets of people who are not being served and how we can get out and expand into those food deserts more and access that person with barriers who lives over there in that area. So that dollar, we would rather go to food than to overhead, although some of it always has to. So getting hands to come in and pack the food and do that meaningful work for us, distribute it out into the community because we only have so many hands, so we just need more, is very helpful. If you're unable to do either one of those two things, sharing the information. Social media is so powerful. It's so powerful. So again, like I was talking about that 211 to access food pantries earlier, sharing that information on your social media account. That spreads far and wide, and people will see it that you might not really think need to see it, but they do. So going to a food bank like the HAFB website and sharing information from there, talking to people, making sure that that information gets in there. You can advocate, be aware of what bills and laws are coming up and how that's going to impact your community. Advocate, talk to your city council, to your lawmakers, and see, let your voice be heard. Let them know how you feel about it and that we want our neighbors to be fed. So those are some simple ways, both money, time, and just simple, quick steps like just sharing information real quickly or reaching out to a senator can make a big difference. You mentioned earlier, just thinking a little further, you mentioned earlier about people who we might not expect to be considered food insecure. With the money that is donated to the Heart of Alabama Food Bank, one of the things that we identified is that we did have pockets of people that were not being served. And so we created programs to help them. So we sit next to Maxwell Air Force Base. So we're having to interact with the military here all the time. And they're a wonderful group. But when we learned that 1 in 4 active duty military is considered food insecure, then we found that to be shocking, like you just did. And we found that to be shocking. These are people who are serving our country selflessly and yet are concerned about their families eating at home while they're off serving. That was unacceptable for us. So we stepped in and created a program called Heroes Harvest in order to be able to help those active duty service members. So we deliver, again, served in dignity. We deliver it to their home in an unmarked van. They do not have to go through their superior officers to get to us. They can contact us directly. So nobody has to know about it. We just want to make sure that they're fed. College students is another one. Those are also another group of people that oftentimes get overlooked, that are oftentimes food insecure as well. So we're looking to get the resources that we do have on hand and stretch them as far and as wide as possible.
It's all about the stretch.
It is all about the stretch. We're good. We're good at it.
Well, we talked about the role that employers might have in addressing food security. We talked about specifically putting something in the newsletter so that everybody might know that that's an option. We talked about the role of schools. What role do you think that local governments play in addressing food insecurity?
Governments, I think, being aware, listening, and understanding exactly what's going on within their counties. And we are happy to talk with any lawmaker if they want to know exactly what's going on in their counties. But I also recommend that not only lawmakers, but the community at large go to the Feeding America website and look for Map the Meal Gap. And I'll say that again because I feel it's important. Map the Meal Gap. There you can find food insecurity information down to the county level. So you can go and click on Alabama, click on Autauga County, we'll say, and you can zoom right in and see how many seniors, how many children, what's the average meal cost, what percentage of the county is food insecure, and all different sorts of demographics that really break it down. So for the Heart of Alabama Food Bank, what we do is we take that information, we go to our lawmakers and we say, look, this is happening in your area. This is the number of people who are struggling in your area. Let's talk. How can we help address this issue? Is it that we need to talk about food pantries? Do we need to talk about funding? Do we need to talk about laws that might need to be addressed? So really getting the government involved as much as possible so that they can really see again and look people in the eyes and understand how this is really going to benefit their community by providing food access. And then when they provide food access to their communities, those communities are going to thrive. So the economic turnaround is then going to be wonderful. If you have a healthy community, you've got a spending community. They're spending money. They're earning money. They're spending money. They're focusing their energy and resources on other things other than their nutrition and trying to access food.
Which is really survival at that level.
It is.
So I like what you said, a healthy community is a spending community, and our lawmakers certainly like that. Well, you told your story, which was, I'd never heard that. We've known each other a long time. So thank you for sharing that. Is there another story that has really stuck with you or changed how you view food insecurity?
Gosh, There are so many. There was a story that I heard recently from a family, a mom and a dad, both of them working, and they have 6 children between them. So it was a 2 income working household for middle class, 6 children. Some of them were adopted. They had to adopt from another family member. So they took these children in. So they were providing care, working family. And then a significant traumatic event happened to one of the children. And there was such trauma there that the mom had to stop working in order to be home with the child, who could no longer then go to school. She was unable to attend school after that. So mom had to quit her job and stay home and homeschool and try to work therapies and all of this stuff. So when this big family suddenly shrunk down to a 1 income household, that had a tremendous strain on the dad, who was then trying to go out and work and make up for not only the increased in therapeutic and medical expenses for the child, but also now just being down to that one salary. The stress of that is enormous. And so this was their first time coming to a food pantry, and it was their first experience, and they felt a lot of shame around that. And one of our jobs is to really try to remove that shame. There is no shame in providing for your family and making sure that your family is nourished and has what it needs. So that's a story that's one of those stories that I take home at night, thinking about that family and those children, and how much the parents were really trying to make ends meet given their situation. Again, we're all one incident, one bill, one paycheck away from potentially needing some assistance.
Absolutely. Is there anything that gives you hope when it comes to solving food insecurity, if not statewide, locally, at the local level? I'd love to hear what's giving you hope
Yes.
right now.
Oh, man, I see lots of hope. I see hope and resilience in the people that we serve, but I see a lot of hope in the generosity of our neighbors as well. Here at Heart of Alabama Food Bank, people come out of the woodwork to volunteer, to come and help donate food, to ask, how can we do a food drive for you guys? You guys are needing peanut butter? We got you. Let me do a peanut butter drive for y'all. Or donating money, raising awareness. We've had influencers that will come here and do videos to try to help spread the word. So people really trying to come out and use their talents and their creativity to see, how can we plug in? And we do have a lot of businesses that come and participate with us in different things. And we love corporate involvement for a variety of reasons. But really, I find a lot of hope in the spirit of the community, seeing everybody really pull together to help bridge this gap for those of us who need it.
Well, is there a question that you thought or hoped that I might ask, but I didn't cover it?
No, I guess I would just say really that it, not a question per se, but a closing statement that I would like to leave everybody with is just to remember that this is not somebody else's problem. This is our problem as a community. And when we stand together, we really can raise the whole group up. Everybody can benefit. Everybody can excel when we all pull together. So it's not their problem. It's our problem, because it's our community and it's our neighbor right next door. So I welcome everybody to get involved. Get involved with the Heart of Alabama Food Bank. Get involved with a local food bank near you. There are several around the state. Get involved with a local food pantry, which is a step under food banks. They do distribution. So just get involved.
Well, Varina, thank you for sharing today. I learned a lot. I think that our audience will learn a lot as well. Even what you were saying is as simple as, share a post, do what you can wherever you are. Beyond that, talk about your website just really quickly again so people can know exactly where to go to get involved.
Sure. HAFB, so that's for Heart of Alabama Food Bank. So HAFB.org. We have a Get Involved page there, and there we have listed a variety of ways that individuals or groups could come and get involved and really make a difference in the community.
Perfect. And if anybody watching or listening wants more information about Pulse, or you want to view more stories like this one, you can go to alabamapulsemagazine.com. And if you have any thoughts on who we should interview next or what topics we should cover, please drop a comment or send me a note. Thanks for listening today.